Hey, welcome back. I want to dedicate this episode just to explain what is Bitcoin and why does it have value. I'd like to share with you a clip that I suggest that you watch through towards the end, where there is a public committee in the US and there's a person who works for a non-profit organization on anything to do with blockchain and cryptocurrency. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for the rest of the audience out there, whether they're new to blockchain and Bitcoin or not. So without further ado, let's jump into the clip. And then towards the end, I'll give you just a few final wrap-up remarks and insights following this presentation.
What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the world's first cryptocurrency, and it works because of the world's first public blockchain network. What does Bitcoin do? It's simple. It lets you send and receive value to and from anyone in the world using nothing more than a computer and an internet connection. Now, why is it revolutionary? Because unlike every other tool for sending money over the internet, it works without the need to trust a middleman. The lack of any corporation in between means that Bitcoin is the world's first public digital payments infrastructure. And by public, I simply mean available to all and not owned by any single entity. Now, we have public infrastructure for information, for websites, for email. It's called the internet. But the only public payments infrastructure that we have is cash, as in paper money. And it only works in face-to-face transactions. Before Bitcoin, if you wanted to pay someone remotely over the phone or the internet, then you could not use public infrastructure. You would rely on a private bank to open their books and add a ledger entry that debits you and credits the person you're paying. And if you both don't use the same bank, well, then there'll be multiple banks and multiple ledger entries in between. With Bitcoin, the ledger is the public blockchain, and anyone can add an entry to that ledger, transferring their Bitcoins to someone else. And anyone, regardless of their nationality, race, religion, gender, sex, or creditworthiness, can for absolutely no cost create a Bitcoin address in order to receive payments digitally. Bitcoin is the world's first globally accessible public money. It is working, and the mere fact that it works without trusted intermediaries is amazing. It's a computer science breakthrough, and it will be as significant for freedom, prosperity, and human flourishing as the birth of the internet. And Bitcoin is just the beginning. If we can replace private payments infrastructure, then we can replace other private choke points to human interaction as well. Now, why should we want to build more public infrastructure? Why should we embrace blockchains over corporate intermediaries? Why should we tolerate their inefficiencies and work to make them better? Why should we want the pioneers of this technology here in the United States and not fleeing overseas? A simple reason. Because the corporate intermediaries providing today's critical but privately owned infrastructure are becoming fewer, larger, and more powerful, and their failures are increasingly grave. The SWIFT network has relayed hundreds of millions of dollars in fraudulent transactions because of hacked member banks in Bangladesh, Vietnam, Ecuador, and Russia. The FBI suspects now that the largest of these hacks was perpetrated by North Korea. Corrupt, low-level employees at an Indian bank, Punjab National, were able to fraudulently certify SWIFT messages, stealing $1.8 billion. It's the largest electronic bank robbery in history. In fact, it's the largest bank robbery in history. Physical machines are being connected to the internet to augment their capabilities. They're wired through servers that are owned and maintained by private and trusted intermediaries, the so-called Internet of Things. Pacemakers from St. Jude's Hospital have been hacked. Baby monitors from TrendNet have been hacked. And Jeeps from Jeep have been hacked to the point where they can be remotely commandeered and driven off the road. Now, those vulnerabilities are inescapable in systems that have single points of failure. It doesn't matter if the point of failure is a corporation or if it's a government. There shouldn't be a single point of failure. Similar choke points existed before the internet. If you wanted to deliver a message, you'd have to go through one of 3 television broadcasters or a handful of newspapers. Private corporations are essential, but no critical infrastructure should rely on one or two. The internet removed single points of failure in communications infrastructure and ushered in a wave of competition among new media corporations building on top of its public rails. Blockchains can similarly disintermediate critical payments and IoT infrastructure. The technology is not yet ready to answer all of those questions today, but it is our best hope.
Right, so just to wrap up this public committee discussion and presentation around Bitcoin, the value that it has in today's digital economy society, I found it was a great segue into how we are seeing it and how we are seeing the leading digital asset progressing and embedding itself into that global monetary mainstream system. What the attributes that they share from both Bitcoin and a blockchain, because Bitcoin is a blockchain, about how Bitcoin is different to any normal blockchain technology out there. Let me just cover attributes that they both share. The first of which is it's immutable, which means that any transactions that get sent across a blockchain network, it's recorded, it's untampered with, it's mathematically impossible to alter it, which is very different from a normal corporation database, whether it's in a bank or in a company and so on. It also, it persists through time. So once a transaction on the blockchain gets recorded, it becomes immutable. It persists over time. It's absolutely impossible to unravel it and discard it, which makes it wonderfully unique. And this is where the trust element of the blockchain proposition provides to society regarding its use. It's very secure, right? It has low transaction fees, so it actually counters with how borderless payments are being managed. You always know that with the likes of Visa or any other SWIFT-like mechanism, there's always a lot of intermediaries involved in the process of sending a bill or making a payment, whether it's through a credit card or for bank-to-bank transfer. There's always a lot of lead times. It's a very onerous and expensive process. With blockchain technology, it's done within minutes, if not in seconds. And the transaction fees are very, very cheap in comparison. And more importantly, there is no middlemen involved. So that is a unique attribute of blockchain. So how Bitcoin is different from any normal blockchain out there? Well, it's a scarce asset. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin in circulation. That's the cap limit, which is perfect for the hardness factor in sound money. And it's ultimately used as a store of value. I'm using a store of value. What do I mean by that? It's used to retain the value of money, the purchasing power of money, of my savings into Bitcoin, such that if I want to be able to transmit it or pass it to another person, I can do so over the Bitcoin network. And I can do it at a later moment in time, in space. So that is a fundamental factor. It could also be used as a medium of exchange. So you can actually use it as a payment settlement network, which is the original idea of how Bitcoin came about. It still is a peer-to-peer payment system. But as it evolved over the time during its 16-year history, there are other use cases that's come out. Fundamentally, as I mentioned, the store of value, which is the ultimate king of all use cases for Bitcoin, to preserve wealth and to indeed grow wealth in the future, right? So that is the fundamental differences of Bitcoin as a leading global monetary digital asset in comparison to the other crypto assets that are completely different and has a different set of attributes, even though they both share the fundamental attributes of a blockchain. So hopefully this podcast has given you further insight as to Bitcoin and the wider blockchain aspect, but fundamentally why Bitcoin is wonderfully unique and why it has value. Well, it has value for the reason I've just mentioned, and also the gentleman before me in the clip that we just saw. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to hit the like button and to also subscribe to my channel, because I regularly post some interesting podcasts such as these, anything to do with Bitcoin, blockchain technology, and indeed the future of finance. So until next time.